Okay, here we go, everybody. A Halloween edition of the Bird Brains with Ken and Mark. My partner is a longtime beat writer for the Eagles who worked for NJ.com and Trenton Times, Mark Eckel, and I'm ex-Philadelphia Eagles, Philadelphia Stars tight end Ken Dunek. We're going to talk about a Halloween version of an Eagles game because it was ugly and scary, just as you would assume it would be on this type of a holiday. But, you know, winning ugly is okay by me. We're going to talk about it in length, but before we do, let me mention our sponsor, Jersey Man and Philly Man Magazine. Hey, Mark, this week is the party of the year at Ballroom at the Ben on Thursday, November 2nd. We've got some great celebrities showing up. How about this lineup? John Clark of NBC 10 is going to be the MC. My former Stars teammate and quarterback, All-American from Penn State, Chuck Fusina, will be attending, along with Eagles greats Mike Quick and Jason Avant, former NBA star Jason Thompson, and I think we're going to have some other celebrities show up as well. And if you're interested in attending this event, there's still room. You can get tickets at jerseymanmagazine.com. Check it out. We raise a lot of money for charity, and we'll think you'll have a good time. So, Mark, were you able to watch the game at home? Mark, as you know, lives in Myrtle Beach, or did you have to go to a sports bar this week?
I went to a sports bar. Okay. I went to Segru's, which is a very good sports bar here in North Myrtle Beach. Yeah, the two games we had here, and you get what, I always get the Panthers. So right. They were, of
course. Who won for the first time, by the way?
Yeah. This was my choices if I stayed home. Panthers and Texans was on Fox, I guess. And then CBS had the Titans and the Falcons.
Okay.
There couldn't be two games. Nothing against those teams. I'm not saying
right. I got you.
But that's two games I didn't have a whole lot of interest in.
Well,
like if the Cowboys were on, you kind of watch the Cowboys,
Understandably so.
So I was out. Yeah, I was out watching all the games, and the game went kind of as we said it was going to go last week. That we both said don't bet the game because you don't know how it was going to, and it turned out to be a push. So
exactly,
if you bet it, you got your do it. It was for nothing. Like I said, I covered I don't know how many 60-something Eagle Washington games.
It doesn't matter. That right? 60 Washington Eagles games?
64 to be. Well, I covered the team for 32 years.
Wow. I guess you did.
And a couple of playoff games, so even more.
You look so much younger than that. That's what confused me.
It's that good life I have down there. And I started when I was 12. But it doesn't matter. I've covered games where the Eagles were very good and Washington wasn't, and like now, Washington's not a very good team, but the Eagles are, but the game's close. I've flip it. There's been years where the Eagles weren't very good, and Washington was winning the division and going to Super Bowls, and the Eagles gave them a good game. It's just there's only been a handful of blowouts in those 60-some games. I mean, it just for whatever reason, they play tough games against each other.
But you've got a dilemma as it relates to television, because not only do you do this podcast, so you really need to watch the Eagles games, but you're also one of the main guys for the Green Bay Packers report and podcast. So what do you do if there's conflicting games?
Well, I've been lucky. Believe it or not, last week was the first time they both played at the same time. So that's why I go to a sports bar. I go like this. I get a sore neck. I have a sore neck by 4 o'clock. But and I'm friends with the guy that owns the bar, so he makes sure he puts the Eagle game and the Packer game next to it on his TVs.
Nice. See, it's all who you know. Life is all who you know. Everybody says different. It doesn't.
If I mention your name, I get into it.
Oh, I'm sure that'll be really help down there in Carolina. So, all right. So let's dissect this Eagles game, and I've got some concerns. First of all, before we get into the Eagles, Ron Rivera makes another coaching mistake, which is happening more and more frequently this year, by not challenging what looked like to be a fairly obvious drop pass. Not exactly a drop pass by Devontae Smith, but it has certainly hit the ground. And give the Eagles credit. They did a good job of rushing up to the line of scrimmage and getting the playoff. But so the Eagles did benefit from that, because that would have turned into a pretty important first down, kept the Eagles in possession of the ball. I am concerned about the Eagles' lack of ability to run the football the last couple of games with their running backs. I believe they only had, DeAndre Swift had 57 yards on the ground. Jalen Hurts with this knee, and you could visibly see the knee brace through the uniform, has limited his ability to run the ball, which is a big facet of his game. So I do have some concerns about that. I do, the fact that, he was visibly limping on television last weekend, and he didn't want to discuss it at the press conference. Apparently, it's a bone bruise in the knee, which can be very painful. Obviously, he's playing through it. But those are some areas of concern right now for the Eagles.
Yeah, the Hurts knee concerns me more than anything. And I know if it's bruises heal, so that's not. But you don't want it to lead to anything else. You don't want them to favor because you played. I mean, sometimes when one thing hurts, you overcompensate. You can overcompensate for a knee and wind up hurting your quad or your ankle or your hamstring. That concerns me. Now, they have a bye after this week, right?
Yeah, it's coming at the right time. Well, they've got Dallas this week. It's Dallas week, everybody. Dallas week, and then the bye.
The bye could really do wonders for Hurts' knee. I hope. As far as the running game, they have to stay committed to it. I think Sirianni gets away from it, or Johnson, whoever's calling the plays.
Don't they? They seem to lose confidence in it. They get stuffed 3 or 4 times, and all of a sudden. I get it. This West Coast version, in the era of the RPO and everything, these play action passes are really glorified running plays because there's a lot of screens and short passes, but there's nothing like the ability to just take the football and stuff it down somebody's throat. And right now the Eagles can't do that. And I put some of that on the offensive line. Juergens has been out. Opeta is not Juergens, and he went out. And they were.
I don't think Lane's 100% either.
And Lane did not look good in that game, and Mulata got beat on a few occasions. So the offensive line has to play better if the Eagles are going to run the football.
No, you're right. But again, I still think they have to stay with it a little more than because we've seen them run the ball very well. Swift's having a pretty good season for him. I'm more concerned with the turnovers.
Well, let's talk about the turnovers.
Inside the 5-yard line.
Kenny Gainwell, 4 carries, -2 yards, 1 fumble, and let's talk about the elephant in the room.
And
right?
one tweet.
And one tweet. Now listen. I get it. It's the era of the player. They could do whatever they want. Coaches coddle these guys. There's no question I'm jealous about it because it wasn't this way in my day. But Gainwell apparently posts a tweet responding to someone who negatively talked about his fumble at halftime of the game he's playing in. Concentration, figuring out a game plan. What am I doing wrong? Who should I attack? He's tweeting. Come on, give me a break.
You put me on to that. I didn't know that. You sent me a tweet telling me this is unbelievable. And I was out at the sports bar. I'm watching 2 games at once. I didn't know about that till you told me, and I was like, "What?" I had the same reaction you did. This is amazing. That.
And you know what the response was?
It's going to be seen.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and not only is it going to be seen by the public, he's going to be seen by the team. There's people on the team watching, for this type of stuff.
What did he say? What was his response?
Well, Sirianni was, yes, of course, we talked to Kenny about this. We want him to maintain focus, and we believe in him, or something like that.
Did Gainwell talk about it yet?
I have not seen him comment directly about it. No, but it was just a series. We're talking about ugly, scary, weird Halloween type of stuff going on. That certainly fits the bill.
That's just weird. That's up there. I've seen and covered a lot of crazy things. That's a guy at halftime responding to a fan. First of all, you shouldn't respond to a fan anytime. Let their fan. No.
Well, listen, if there's some, clever banter 2 days after the game, and you want to, that's all right. But, I've never heard of anything like that during the game. Let's talk about some other Eagles and some really good stuff. A.J. Brown, who probably made the catch of the year on that touchdown, the one-handed touchdown grab. 8 catches for 130 yards, 2 touchdowns. The first player in NFL history to gain 6 consecutive games of 125 yards plus. It's amazing what this guy has done to the team. And those are big catches, man. If he doesn't make those grabs, I'm not sure the Eagles win that game.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
AJ, I can't say it. I say it every time you bring him up. That was the greatest trade in Eagle is getting him. They don't go to a Super Bowl last year without him. I don't think, and they're not 7-1 this year without him. And on their way to listen, right about this time last year was when I told you I think the Eagles are going to the Super Bowl. So I'm going to say it again. There's no, I'm not saying they're going to win this. I didn't say they were going to win it last year. I said they were going to get there. They're going to get there again because there's nobody in the NFC that can beat them.
Well, I agree. We're going to take a long-term look at the schedule. Staying on the receivers, Devontae Smith had a good game, 7 catches, 99 yards, and a touchdown. It's interesting that they're still having trouble getting Dallas Goedert involved in the passing game. He only had 4 receptions for 36 yards, very few targets. He doesn't, and actually had a couple drops. A little disappointed in his play. Gainwell did wind up having 5 catches for 30 yards. So, Hurts, again, impressive numbers. People are calling it his best game of the year. 29 for 38, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. The tush push finally failed, however, ladies and gentlemen. We fumbled on the goal line. Were you as shocked as I was to see that happen?
Yes. Yeah, they fumbled twice.
Gainwell was on the goal line too.
I think I saw a stat where it was the first time in, I don't know, since like 1930. I don't know when it's first time in modern NFL history that a team has lost 2 fumbles inside the 5-yard line.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That seems unbelievable to me. I want documentation.
Somebody wrote it. I don't know.
Oh, it's on the internet, so it must be true.
No. A real writer wrote it.
A real writer. All right.
Not the internet thing. It was a real thing.
A couple of other Eagles notes. Julio Jones gets his first TD catch as an Eagle. What good addition. I don't know what's going to happen with Quez Watkins. Now, he's coming off of this hamstring. I think he's still supposed to be out for a couple of weeks, and Zacharias doesn't really seem to be doing that much.
Yeah, I think he's the odd man out. Watkins comes back, they'll use him. I mean, it's a good problem when you have too many players, right? That's a good problem to have. Watkins has a role. I mean, he's your speed guy. They'll rotate guys in there. Listen, you don't want Julio Jones isn't a kid anymore. You don't want him out there too much,
Right.
So use him. That's up to the coach. They got 100 coaches on the staff that can. One of them can figure out how many, who to play when.
They have a receivers coach. They have an assistant receivers coach.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing.
How many coaches back in the 80s? How many assistant coaches did Dick have?
So Marion Campbell was the defensive coordinator. Dick was actually the offensive coordinator.
Yes, his own.
They had a tight ends coach, an offensive line coach, a receivers coach. Dick Corey, by the way, one of my favorite guys in football, was the receivers coach. I think Billy Joe was the running back coach, and I think those were the only offensive coaches.
Was there a special teams coach back then?
There was. Lynn Stiles, the tight ends coach, doubled as a special teams coach.
I was going to say he doubled, right?
Yeah, and right. Let's see, on defense, Fred Bruni was defensive backs. Marion Campbell, I think, did the defensive line. George Hill, linebackers. There was probably 8 to 10 coaches total. Now they have assistants to the assistants for every position.
Quality control.
Yeah. Why do the Eagles make Sam Howell look like Tom Brady? I mean, 39 for 52, 397 yards and 4. What are we doing in the defensive backfield that makes this kid look? And guess what? The numbers would have been better if McLaurin doesn't drop those 2 passes on the last drive. He would have had well over 400 yards. What's the deal with this kid? Why does he play so well against the Eagles? What are we doing wrong?
He wears a Washington uniform. It's as simple as that. I mean, how do you shut down? And this is how crazy the NFL is, and the Eagles are a microcosm of it. You play a high-powered Miami Dolphin, high-powered, they scored 70 in a game this season.
Fastest team I've ever seen. Yeah.
Right. You shut them down basically.
Yeah.
The whole. You really do. The defense looks phenomenal in holding Tua and Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and all those guys in check. Raheem Mostert, the running back. You hold them pretty much in check the whole game. And then you play Washington, which is Terry McLaurin's. He's a good wide receiver, and the rookie, or not a rookie, he's a second-year guy from Penn State, Dotson. Not bad. They're okay. They're not in the Miami class. And Sam Howell's like, look at his numbers against everybody except the Eagles. He's not good at all.
I agree.
So, I mean, it's crazy that he look. If I was if I was the Eagles' opponent, no matter who I am, I would wear Washington uniforms.
change the colors.
Just like I'm going to do my throwback this week. I'm going to wear Washington uniforms because I'm telling you, it's just weird that they just. Yeah, Sam Howell is not that good. Believe me, he's okay at best. But the 2 games he played against the Eagles, he was great.
Well, I can tell you, in my opinion, one of the reasons why the Eagles' defensive backfield is getting beat is James Bradbury is not having a very good year. He drops a pick, he gets beat long on the first touchdown, he gets hurdled by a runner, puts his head down, and just gets hurdled on a play. And even Slay last week, we didn't hear his name called that much. It seems to me like they're going 3 deep and they're given way too much room. They're playing this sticks defense, and the problem is our pass rush really isn't getting to the quarterback the way it should. We've only had 1 sack last week, and that was Reddick at the end of the game. So the Eagles' front 4 has to get heat on the quarterback if they're going to play that style of defense. Otherwise, we're in trouble.
Well, that's the key. I mean, the Eagles usually, and against Miami, they did get some pressure, which, forced Tua to throw the ball. He didn't always get sacks, but made him throw the ball sooner than he wanted, or, got him on the move. But the key to the Eagles defense, I think, is they have a very good front 4. Actually, it's a front, but with the way they rotate, it's more than 4. But, Reddick and Sweat and Cox and
Carter and Davis.
Yeah. I mean, they're pretty good. That if they don't have good games, the defense is going to be in trouble because that's the strength of the team. So for them to play the way they did against Miami and other teams this year, it starts up front. They get pressure, and it makes the defensive backs look better than they really are even sometimes.
A couple other defensive notes. I looked at the stat sheet and I was shocked by this. Nakobe Dean, they credited him with 11 tackles. I didn't hear his name called once on the air.
I saw the same thing. I was like, he had 11 tackles?
Yeah.
I must have been watching the Packer game
then. Well, your eyes weren't going back and forth.
Yeah, I thought I would have saw a couple of 11, right?
Blankenship.
I didn't think he had a great game, Nakobe.
No, and at the end, now I don't know if it was a package, but he wasn't on the field for that last drive that I could see. So I found that interesting. Again, the Eagles' defensive backs having a rough game, although Blankenship seemed to make up for it a little bit with that interception. That was a big one. Biard, is it pronounced Byard or Biard, the new safety that
I think it was Byard.
Byard.
Sure.
He has 7 tackles in his debut. And then, you have to consider this too. When you inject a new player into a new system, maybe that's affecting the way the coaches are calling the game. Maybe they're trying to protect this guy a little bit because they don't, he doesn't know exactly what to do. I'm searching for answers here, but if you have any comments,
it's a simple answer. They played Washington. Washington and Philly, it doesn't matter. It's going to be a good game. It's going to usually come down to the last minute. And the team that's supposed to win doesn't always win. Now, luckily, like you said, hey, winning up, and I said this a couple weeks ago, you don't apologize for a win, especially on the road.
Exactly. Winning ugly is still winning.
Yeah. Hey, San Francisco, the great, everybody anointed a couple weeks ago was, they're the greatest. They
lost 3 dropped 3 in a row.
And
ask them if they'd like to win ugly.
Right. They lost at home last week to Cincinnati. Now, Cincinnati's a good team, but still, that team's got some questions. They have some things they got to straighten out. Seattle's in first place now, by the way.
Well, Seattle was my sleeper pick. this
Me
year.
too.
Yeah,
I like it.
they're
I'm still not sold on Geno Smith,
no, but I tell you
but I
what,
like the
though,
rest of that team.
he's playing way
He's
better
doing the
than
rest. He is.
and guess what? To Pete Carroll's credit, he saw something in the guy. I think you
Yeah.
and I were both surprised when they named him the starter, but you know, he's managing the game. You know, you don't have to be a great
That's enough.
quarterback. Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl, wasn't a great quarterback. Mark Rippon wasn't a great quarterback. When if you can manage the game, you know,
Don't
you
make
can
mistakes.
exactly.
Don't be afraid to punt.
Speaking of punters, how about the Eagles punter? This kid man that's come in, 2 punts averaged 57.5 yards. I mean that's that's a good weapon, and he's a good find. Let's talk about injuries a little bit. You know, Jalen Carter again leaves the game. Hurts his back. Milton Williams has shoulder. We talked about Opeta going out of the game late. So the injuries are starting. Hurts, you know, nicked up. The injuries are starting to mount a little bit. And of course, it's Dallas week, and then the bye looks like it might be coming at a good time.
A perfect time. I mean, well, perfect would be this week, but Dallas is going to be tough. That's another. I mean, Dallas and Eagles again.
Eagles are a 2.5-point favorite, but they opened at 2.5. I think it went up to
home.
3. Yeah,
that's home. That's just for being home.
Right.
This is going to be a tough game. Dallas is going to be a tough game. It really is. It always is. And they're good. Not a tough game like Washington was a tough game, even though Washington I don't think is very good. Dallas is a good team. Dallas, in my opinion, I know San Francisco rolled them when they played. I think that's just one of the things that happened. I think Dallas presents a bigger problem to the Eagles than San Francisco does.
And why do you say that?
Just because of the way they match up. Dallas has, like you said, the secondary. Well, CD Lamb and Cooks, they're going to give the secondary better play better.
Yeah.
And the pass rush better get the Dak. And Dallas's offensive line isn't bad. So I look for a high scoring game this week. Although I think they're going to, just like last week, they're going to need, Eagles are going to have to score some points.
Dak is a tough guy to figure out.
Yeah, it's impossible.
He's so hot and cold. I mean, there are games when he looks just awful, and then he can light it up on any given Sunday. This kid is a real wild card.
No, he can be great. And in other weeks, you look at him and say, "Is that the same guy I watched last week?" He doesn't look like the same, you know. But no, Dallas is good. But then, like you said, the bye does come. They can get healed up. I would think, you know, Hurts his knee. Hopefully, if it's just a bruise, bruises do heal. Carter's back. Now, backs are tricky, as you know. Back injuries could linger. You could feel good one day, and the next day it flares up, and you can't move.
Yeah.
But rest is the best thing for it. So the bye week does come good for them. But then after the bye, as you said, we're gonna look at the schedule. After the bye, it gets for real.
It's well, but the one saving grace about this schedule is these teams that are coming up that looked unbeatable all of a sudden can be beat. After the Dallas game, we got the bye, as we mentioned. Then we're at Kansas City. Kansas City. Now, apparently, Mahomes had the flu.
Half
and
the team did.
and the entire team was
Well,
suffering.
he got it, and he gave it to everybody else.
Because how else do you explain Denver, a team that gave up 70 points to Miami, holding Kansas City? I believe it was 9 points, right? And first time Mahomes was left without a touchdown, right? First time he was held without a touchdown. Did I read that correctly?
Yes.
And then you go to Buffalo. Now Buffalo has struggled, especially defensively. But I tell you, they're still a formidable opponent. Yeah. Now, luckily, we have them at home, which should help. And you've got the 49ers. Listen, 49ers are a little off kilter right now, but I can tell you this. The revenge factor in that game, coming off the NFC Championship game, there's going to be some fireworks going on at San Francisco.
That's home too, though, right?
It is at home, yeah.
Yeah, I like the Eagles. Of those 3 games, I think the Niners are the easiest.
Yeah. That's quite.
It's at Kansas City. I don't care. It's at Kansas City. That's a tough place to play. Andy's going to have his guys ready. And Buffalo, like you said, they're up and down too. You don't know. So you know where Buffalo messed up, in my opinion, and a couple teams.
Well, Leslie Frazier leaving hurt him. In my opinion, yeah.
But this is something that they could control. They went to London, which I know every team they send that.
Jacksonville seems to love it.
Well, they go for a month. They play 3 games.
It's like a vacation. It's a 3-week vacation.
It's like a home game for them now. But Buffalo went to most times. Now the last year the NFL left it up to the team. It used to be when you went to London, you had the bye week the next week. Just to get back home, you got the bye week. Well, Buffalo, like some other teams have done, said, "Nah, we don't want the bye now. It's too early. We'll take it later." And they haven't looked right. They lost in London to Jacksonville.
Oh, wait a minute. Well, that's breaking news. Are you telling me that the NFL gives the teams the option coming off of the London game to have a bye the following? Really?
Yes.
I never knew that.
Well,
See, this is inside stuff here. You don't get this anywhere else but on the Bird Brains with Ken and Mark podcast. That's pretty interesting.
It used to be automatic. It used to be automatic that the teams that played in London or Germany.
I guess they felt like they won it later in the year because there'll be more injuries then. Huh? Right. Interesting.
But they haven't looked. Buffalo has not looked right. They lost in Jacksonville. They lost in London to Jacksonville. Okay, Jacksonville's that's
but the deck was stacked against them in that game because Jacksonville had played there the
week
before and they acclimated to the time. Believe me, as a guy who was just in Europe, the jet lag is real, folks. Yeah. It is real. So that's
So they came home and they won 2 out of 3, but they haven't looked good. They barely beat the Giants. They took all and then they did lose, and then they barely beat Tampa Bay. I mean, Buffalo should have rolled over Tampa Bay and the Giants. I thought, from a talent standpoint. So I don't know if the Bills bye comes before they play the Eagles or not. Probably does. I would think
I'd have to look it up. But so listen, I want to wish everybody a safe and happy Halloween. Hopefully we'll be back. And again, it's Dallas week, everybody. Here's a quick Dallas week. So, Dick Vermeil was notorious for his difficult practices. Training camp was legalized torture. Practices during the week were all full contact, right? Until we got to Dallas week. And then we were shorts and shirts. And then we did very little. And the reason is because he didn't have to get our attention for Dallas week. He knew the team was going to be ready, and he wanted everybody fresh. We loved Dallas week because we weren't beating our brains out against each other every day in practice. So I think Dallas.
And then it went right back the week after Dallas. He went right back to killing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. God forbid we were playing the Saints or something next week. It was full scrimmages during practice. But anyway. Thanks for being with us for another edition of the Bird Brains with Ken and Mark. Hopefully we'll talking about an Eagles victory against Dallas on Sunday. For Mark Eckel, I'm Ken Dunek. We'll see you next week, everybody. Take care. Have a good Halloween.